talking about is called deferred maintenance. It's the practice many airlines use to defer or put off needed repairs to aircraft. But an ABC Action News investigation has discovered some pilots, mechanics, even the Department of Transportation are increasingly concerned about the frequency and reasons some airlines are delaying repairs. But there's something you should know about the man who identifies himself as Master Gunnery Sergeant Angel Ocasio. He never won the Navy Cross or any of the medals he wears. He is not a Master Gunnery Sergeant. And according to the Marine Corps, he has never been a Marine. The VA's Inspector General says it's investigating what we uncovered. If you would like to search the VA's database of accredited agents, just go to our website at abcactionnews.com. Alan Cohn, ABC Action News.
On Veterans Day this week, we honored our men and women in uniform, but tonight an ABC Action News investigation uncovers the extraordinary case of a local man who's wearing a Marine Corps uniform and some of the military's highest honors that he did not earn. Chief Investigative Reporter Alan Cohn was able to track down this incredible case of stolen valor.
For Marines, they are words to live by. Duty.
Duty, honor, and country.
Once a Marine, always a Marine.
Honor, courage, and commitment are our core values.
Hoorah!
From the battlefield to the parade ground to American Legion halls, it's a sacred bond, always faithful. So when Angel Ocasio began showing up at Tampa area VFWs and American Legion posts wearing his crisp, starched Marine Corps uniform with stripes of a Master Gunnery Sergeant and a chest full of ribbons,
I got a Bronze Star, Purple Heart, a Navy Cross.
Retired Marines like Jack Skelding paid attention.
I noticed the decorations he was wearing. One of them was the Navy Cross, which impressed me.
Why did it impress you?
Well, anybody who is a Navy Cross recipient is a hero.
But there's something you should know about the man who identifies himself as Master Gunnery Sergeant Angel Ocasio. He never won the Navy Cross or any of the medals he wears. He is not a Master Gunnery Sergeant. And according to the Marine Corps, he has never been a Marine. In fact, as this email shows, the Sergeant Major of a Marine Corps unit in Tampa asked Marine Corps headquarters about Ocasio. And the response was they do not have anything on him or his awards. But Ocasio sure looked the part when he applied for membership at the Marine Corps League detachment in Newport Richey, telling the commander there, Roger Golden, he was still on active duty and stationed at Central Command in Tampa.
He dressed sharp, haircut's clean. He seemed to know what he was talking about.
In Riverview, at another Marine Corps League detachment, Ocasio even applied for membership by submitting his DD-214, the certificate every vet gets that highlights their military record. It notes his Purple Heart and Navy Cross among his many honors.
Well, I've been all over. I've been in Iraq, Afghanistan, Kosovo, Somalia, Grenada, Beirut, Panama.
Not home.
Oh yes, that's Ocasio's wife Terry, who is often by his side lamenting the life of a Marine Corps wife. But eventually, everywhere the couple went, people began getting a little suspicious with every story they'd tell.
I looked up the list of recipients of the Navy Cross on the internet, and his name was not listed on there. And right away, that made me suspicious of him.
That's like a slap in the face to the Marines that earned those stuff. And it's a slap in the face to every Marine.
So the couple kept moving on, from the Marine Corps League in Newport Richey to the VFW in South Tampa to an American Legion post in Tampa, where we found them on a recent Friday night.
And how long have you been in the Corps?
30 years.
Too long.
They certainly weren't shy when we took out the cell phone camera with a video light. We had asked local VFWs to give us a call if Ocasio showed up in full uniform. Angel. We're from ABC Action News. He did. And outside we asked, what kind of ribbons do you have there?
I got Bronze Star, Combat Action Marine, Purple Heart, Navy Cross.
You know, I got to tell you, we checked with the Marine Corps. They never heard of you.
Oh, really?
Really? Again, we checked.
It's a disrespect to myself as a Marine, to all my Marine friends who have died, and to all the boys, the Marines that are over there now.
Why Ocasio is trying to pass himself off as a Marine is unclear, but he may have bigger problems on his hands because...
Sir, have you ever heard of stolen valor?
No.
Stolen valor is a federal law that is punishable by a year in prison and fines for people who fake being a member of the military.
Oh. I'm not faking. I'm not faking this.
With that, Angel left, leaving his wife Terry behind, still clutching his white Marine Corps hat.
The Marine Corps says they've never heard of your husband.
Okay, I have no comment.
So, what does the Marine Corps think about what we have uncovered? Monday at 6, we'll hear from the 3-star general who is Deputy Commander of U.S. Central Command. Alan Cohn, ABC Action News.
A Bay Area County Commissioner who is running for higher office is refusing to answer questions tonight about how his wife was able to buy a waterfront vacation home in Arkansas. State law requires lawmakers to disclose their assets, but Chief Investigative Reporter Alan Cohn reveals when it comes to Hillsborough Commissioner Jim Norman, the disclosure form doesn't tell the whole story.
They are the financial disclosure forms every office holder and every candidate for office in Florida have to file on a yearly basis, requiring details about the property they own, income they earn, and investments they make.
And it's designed to provide the public with a snapshot of that person's assets and liabilities, so they can have some idea, the public can have some idea of potential biases, potential conflicts of interest.
And for the last 5 years, the financial disclosure forms filed by Hillsborough County Commissioner Jim Norman, who is now running for the state Senate, have been, in a word, unremarkable. A home in Carrollwood he owns with his wife Merlene, now valued at a little more than $200,000. A couple of retirement accounts, savings accounts, a little more than $85,000 in stocks and bonds, and 2 vehicles he owns with his wife Merlene. But an ABC Action News investigation has uncovered what's not on Commissioner Norman's financial disclosure statements the last several years is far more interesting than what is. Specifically, this $435,000 lakefront vacation home in an Arkansas resort community. That's Jim Norman's 28-foot pontoon boat docked out back. It's one of 2 boats he has registered in Arkansas which don't appear on his financial disclosures, even though they're valued more than the minimum reporting limit of $1,000.
Shouldn't they be on your financial disclosure?
Yes, and I will amend my financial disclosure.
Of course, that's nothing compared to the 2,800 square foot home with 3 bathrooms, central air, and its own dock. And while the Normans' Tampa home and their cars are listed in both their names, the vacation home, which was bought in 2006 without so much as a mortgage or any kind of loan, a title search shows, is listed solely in the name of the commissioner's wife, Merlene.
Do you know how she paid for that house?
I'm not involved with that. I do not get involved with her financial decisions, and that is her business.
State law does not require spouses of office holders to disclose assets they own individually. But Commissioner Norman's comments to us about the house and the fact it's listed solely in his wife's name raised more questions than they answered. For instance, while the commissioner repeatedly claimed,
my wife runs a business and she has investors and she has made investments that I'm not involved with.
Merlene Norman, however, isn't listed on the state's website as the owner or officer of any company in Florida since a small closet company of hers was dissolved in 2001. And we couldn't find any evidence she is an officer in the company in any other state.
I mean, obviously, one of the easiest ways to determine whether there was any concern in that area would be to get tax returns.
Tampa attorney Tom Scarrett is the former chairman of the state's Ethics Commission.
They would tell you whether the spouse was working, whether the spouse had any significant assets that were in investments, whether the spouse was a member of any groups of investors or any businesses.
Commissioner Norman told us he and his wife file as a married couple, but when we asked to see their tax returns, he cut us right off.
In order for us to clear up this, would you share?
And while Norman claims he has never asked his wife how the vacation home was paid for, he does say he goes there and he uses the boats, but he is careful how he frames it.
I've gone out to help maintain the house. I've helped maintain the properties. Do
you use those boats that are there?
I have used the boats, yes. Yes. they have to be also maintained.
Merlene Norman declined to do an interview, and the Norman campaign never did give us promised information about her business. A local real estate legal expert says the commissioner's explanation that the house was an investment by a group of investors is implausible. To see that interview, go to our website at abcactionnews.com. Alan Cohn, ABC Action News.
Good evening, I'm Brendan McLaughlin.
And I'm Wendy Ryan. Thanks for joining us. First tonight, Armwood High School. Its name is synonymous with high school football in Tampa Bay. But our I-team has uncovered an eligibility issue involving one of Armwood's starting players. And as Chief Investigator Alan Cohn reports, it's put the school's undefeated season in jeopardy.
The Armwood Hawks started their season televised nationally on ESPN. They're ranked third in the nation. They haven't just beaten every team they've played so far. In most cases, they've destroyed them. For the players and their parents, it doesn't get any better than this.
Parents think if they're seen on ESPN, gives them a better chance for a scholarship.
Armwood receives national exposure because it's the #1 ranked team in Florida with the highest winning percentage of any team in Hillsborough County for the last 5 years. But some coaches are openly questioning how Armwood and other schools seem to get the best players year after year. While the state allows students to choose their schools, the Florida High School Athletic Association bans transfers for purely athletic reasons. But head coaches like Mike Depew say he sees them all the time.
Every year the transfers, and they're going on right now. You know, how did they end up doing it?
Because like any rule, there are exceptions. An athlete can transfer and immediately play for their new school if there is a full and complete move from their former home, providing
A, the former residence is not occupied for any purpose.
Sonny Hester is the former head of compliance for the FHSAA.
All utilities are transferred, driver's license, voter registration, and all other forms of legal identification are changed to the new residence. So all of these have to be met. If one of them are not met, then you're in violation of the rule.
Rules the I-team has learned officials are now examining in the case of senior Jack Lightsey, a 6'3", 260-pound offensive lineman, which records show transferred from Orlando's Dr. Phillips High School to Armwood, 65 miles and 2 counties away on March 29th. He played in the school's spring football game, even though his parents, Tom and Shelley, continue to own their Orlando home, register their cars there, and register to vote there. It's still their homesteaded property, and this is their latest water bill. We tried contacting the Lightseys several times before catching up with Tom Lightsey just before the recent Armwood Plant football game.
You know, I have properties in Orange County, I have properties in Hillsborough County, Pinellas County.
On several occasions, the I-team witnessed Lightsey leaving his apartment near Armwood and going to school. We sometimes found his parents, Tom and Shelley, over 30 miles away at another home they own in Indian Rocks Beach. It's there they tend to their waterfront home and take turns bringing their teenage daughter to Largo High School. Is the apartment here for any other reason than the
Yes.
school out? Is that apartment where you and your wife live?
Yes.
According to Sonny Hester, if the Lightseys enrolled their son at Armwood, listing the Seffner apartment as the family's legal residence, it would violate FHSAA rules that prohibit false information to gain eligibility.
What are the consequences for that?
Ineligibility for an entire year.
Hester says 2 state rules are in question, whether there was a full and complete move or falsification of information. Either way.
So that student would be ineligible at whatever school they attended and would forfeit any games that student participated in.
For Armwood, undefeated and driving towards a state championship, it would be devastating.
We're not going to try to sweep it under the rug.
Landis Robinson is the athletic director of Hillsborough County.
We're addressing issues brought to our attention, yes, sir.
How?
We're addressing them, and that's an internal matter.
The I-team has learned, based on the information we developed, Armwood High School has asked the state to make a ruling on Lightsey's eligibility. In doing so, the FHSAA could possibly reduce the potential $2,500 a game fine for Armwood, but not the potential forfeits. The process of investigating this, we're told, could take months and involve a look at the entire program. Wendy?
These grenades have been used every day by our troops, from the streets and cities of Iraq to the rugged mountains and trails of Afghanistan. And they're made right here in Florida by a Tampa-based company. But ABC Action News has uncovered serious claims about possible problems on the production line.
Yeah, problems that raise questions about whether the 40mm grenades made by DSE Incorporated could be potentially dangerous to our troops. Chief Investigative Reporter Alan Cohn has been digging into these claims, and he joins us now. Alan?
Jameson, the allegations are disturbing. A lack of good quality control is resulting in defective parts in grenade fuses that could cause them to malfunction. But is there any evidence? Is there any proof? We have poured through hundreds of government documents to get answers. In over 25 years as a quality assurance expert, John King has worked on some of the best-known weapon systems made in the U.S. From the Patriot to the Hellfire missile. He has worked for Lockheed Martin, General Dynamics, and the Army itself. But there's a huge difference between working on a weapon system and working on a weapon system a member of your family will depend on. And that's exactly what happened when King went to work for the subsidiary of Tampa-based DSE Inc., which makes 40mm grenades used by just about every branch of the U.S. military.
My little cousin was in Iraq at the time as an Army Ranger, using these exact weapons to protect himself and his troops.
King went to work in 2008 as quality assurance manager for DSE Fusing, which makes the fuses, the intricate watch-like mechanism that controls when the grenade will arm. But his tenure here would end abruptly 10 months later, after he concluded
they were incapable of shipping products that weren't defective.
King claims just days after starting his new job, some employees began slipping him documents showing defective parts were winding up in fuses being shipped out. His fear, the defects could cause grenades to explode prematurely or not at all. So he tried shutting down the production line by withholding batches of defective fuses.
But the management would override me every single time, and they shipped the product against the quality assurance manager's specific direction not to.
But what King didn't know and couldn't prove was whether any U.S. troops have ever been injured by defective grenades. So ABC Action News filed a Freedom of Information request with the U.S. Munitions Command, and this is what we found. March 2009, Quantico, Virginia. 5 Marines are injured during a training exercise. Some had to be medevaced after a 40mm grenade exploded in the air just 15 to 20 meters from the muzzle of the grenade launcher. It was the second time that day a grenade exploded prematurely. The investigation blamed a defective fuse. The Army says it wasn't possible to determine who manufactured the defective grenades.
Drop their way!
But ABC Action News reviewed record after record of the 40mm rounds. DSE Inc. was the primary contractor of over half of the grenades used that day. King's attorney is former Republican Congressman Craig James, who is representing him in a whistleblower lawsuit against DSE and others.
You have troops that potentially are in harm's way when if what John says is accurate, and I believe it to be accurate.
And Tucker Campion is a former Navy SEAL who worked in weapons acquisitions at MacDill Air Force Base's Special Operations Command.
We're trying to do everything we can do to support the warfighter, okay? And when we give them some substandard equipment, things that are unsafe, then you're putting our soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines at risk.
King showed us this memo he wrote to his boss, where he reports in one randomly sampled lot of grenades that were shipped to the military, 36 out of 192 detents, a critical part of the fuse, were out of tolerance. That's despite a military standard for this part, which allows for 0 defects.
What's your reaction?
The number of defects in this case is very high.
We showed King's memorandum and other documents from the lawsuit to Professor Tapas Das, a quality assurance expert at USF.
And my judgment, that lot should have been rejected.
We also showed the documents to Danielle Bryan of the nonpartisan Project on Government Oversight in Washington, which investigates allegations of contractor misconduct.
It was clear that he was raising concerns inside the chain of command, and there was great hostility in really even listening to what he had to say.
We also found this. In a Justice Department response to King's lawsuit, prosecutors acknowledge an audit appears to confirm at least some of his allegations.
The Justice Department rarely makes statements that are that clear, where they're saying that the whistleblower's claims are at least in part being confirmed. So that's a really big deal.
And this.
Orange County Fire Rescue, what's the address of the emergency?
One of the ladies working on a hand line, there was an explosion at her workstation.
A DSE fusing employee was seriously injured on the production line just 4 months ago. We obtained this OSHA report showing the worker was hit by a projectile from a detonator inside the fuse, which exploded. The company was fined a little over $6,000. And finally this, the Defense Contract Management Agency, which oversees military contracts, tells us DSE was cited just 2 months ago for failing to adequately oversee its fuse production program. So did the Army ever take any action? Yes. Last February, after it learned about King's allegations, well after the government conducted its own audit determining there is at least some merit to them, well after the Justice Department filed its own lawsuit against the former owner of the fuse business, the U.S. Army awarded DSE a brand new $22 million contract. King claims he was fired after continually complaining about quality control. The obvious question, what does DSE and the Army have to say? Both declined interviews, but in a statement, DSE says King's allegations are absolutely false, not credible, and categorically denied. The company won't address specifics. As for the Army, it says the safety of military members is our highest priority. We perform multiple checks to ensure the highest level of safety. We provide America's sons and daughters.